Welcome back to another episode of Life in Prison. As always, my name is Zach. Unfortunately, I spent 5 years of my life in maximum security prison. Since getting out, I've got my medical degree, and I'm currently working in an urgent care, helping those who cannot help themselves. What I do is firsthand look with interviews with individuals that's still locked up in prison for assortment of crimes, whether it be for murder, for drugs, or for thieving. Just showing you a firsthand look what it's actually like living life in prison. You can sell guns, right? You can shoot guns, right? You can sell dope. You can steal things. But at the end of the day, this is exactly where it's going to get you. A 7x12 with another man, miserable. You can choose what life you want to go down. Take it from us, the ones that have already been there and done that, and stay out the way. What I do is tell stories about my life and the things that I've seen and went through while I was in prison, along with getting out and trying to get myself back into society as we should, right? So today it's going to be a little bit different, and it's actually going to probably blow your mind. Know that there's private prisons all throughout the country, but who owns these private prisons? So today we are going to be diving into a video I found with Bone Thugs and Harmony's one and only Crazy Bone, who is pretty much exposing the rap industry, how they're the ones who influence the rap community, wanting to push the agenda of selling drugs, shooting guns, messing with women, doing all the things that's going to get you locked up, therefore putting you inside these prisons that they have stock invested into. Today we're going to find out. So what I want you to do, go ahead, sit back, relax, enjoy this episode, come back for more, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification button so you're first informed when I upload. As always, I send my utmost love, Lord, to respect. Keep your head up, keep pushing positive, and come back for more, because I know you're going to love this one, and it's definitely going to blow some minds. We gone.
The letter is the secret meeting that changed rap music and destroyed a generation.
Damn.
So it says, hello. After more than 20 years, I finally decided to tell the world what I witnessed in 1991. Which I believe was one of the biggest turning points in popular music and ultimately American society. I have struggled for a long time weighing the pros and cons of making my story public, as I was reluctant to implicate the individuals who were present that day. So I simply decided to leave out the names and all the details that may risk my personal well-being and that of those who were, like me, dragged into something they weren't ready for.
Damn.
Hold on, let me
So we gonna tell a story.
We gonna tell a story. We ain't scared.
You know what I'm saying? What they gonna do?
They after us not scared.
Black man.
So look. So he says between the late 80s and early 90s, I was what you may call a decision maker with one of the more established companies in the music industry. I came to Europe in the early 80s and quickly established myself in the business. The industry was different back then, since technology and media weren't accessible to people like that, like they are today. The industry had more control over the public and had the means to influence them any way it wanted.
Right.
This may explain why in early 1991, I was invited to attend a closed-door meeting with a small group of business insiders to discuss rap music's new direction. Rap music's new direction.
Yeah.
Little did I know we would be asked to participate in one of the most unethical and destructive business practices ever seen.
Christ.
So this was the meeting. The meeting was held at a private residence on the outskirts of Los Angeles. I remember about 25 to 30 people were being there.
Right.
Most of them familiar faces. Speaking of those I knew, we joked about the theme of the meeting, as many of us did not care for rap and failed to see the purpose of being invited to a private meeting to discuss the future of hip-hop.
Talk to him.
Among the attendees was a small group of unfamiliar faces who stayed to themselves and made no attempt to socialize beyond their circle. Based on their behavior and formal appearances, they didn't seem to be from our industry. Our casual chatter was interrupted when we were asked to sign a confidentiality agreement preventing us from publicly discussing the information presented during the meeting. Needless to say, this intrigued, in some cases, disturbed many of us. The agreement was only a page long, but very clear on matters and consequences, which stated that violating the terms would result in job termination immediately. We asked several people what this meeting was about and the reason for such secrecy, but could not find anyone who had the answers for us. A few people refused to sign and walked out. Nobody stopped them. I was tempted to follow, but curiosity got the best of me.
That's right.
A man who was part of the unfamiliar group collected all the agreements from us. So now it's going to get to the good part of the meeting about to start.
Talk to him, Jake.
It says, quickly after the meeting began, hold on a second.
Get your popcorn, y'all.
Popcorn, get your pistol. No,
Real.
quickly after this meeting began, one of the industry colleagues, who shall remain nameless like everybody else, thanked us for attending. He then gave the floor to a man who only introduced himself by first name and gave no other details about his personal background. I think he was the owner of the residence, but that was never confirmed. He briefly praised all of us for the success we had achieved in our industry and congratulated us for being selected as part of this small group of decision makers. At this point, I began to feel slightly uncomfortable and the strangeness of this gathering. The subject quickly changed as the speaker went on to tell us that the respective companies we represented had invested in a very profitable industry which could become even more rewarding with our active involvement. He explained that the companies we worked for had invested millions into the building of privately owned prisons, and that our positions of influence in the music industry would actually impact the profitability of these investments. Then he says, I remember many of us in the group immediately looking at each other in awe and confusion. At the same time, I didn't know what a private prison was, but I wasn't the only one. Sure enough, someone asked what these prisons were and what any of this had to do with music. We were told that these prisons were built by privately owned companies who received funding from the government based on the number of inmates. The more inmates, the more the government would pay these prisons. It was also made clear to us that since these prisons are privately owned, as they become publicly traded, we'd be able to buy shares. Most of us were taken back by this. Again, a couple of people asked what this had to do with us. At this point, my industry colleague who had first opened the meeting took the floor again and answered our questions. He told us that since our employees had become solid investors in this prison business, it was now in their interest to make sure that these prisons remain filled. Our job would be to help make this happen by making music which promote criminal behavior, rap being the music of choice. He assured us that this would be a great situation for us because rap music was becoming an increasingly profitable market for our companies, and as employees, we also be able to buy stocks in these prisons. Immediately, silence came over the room. You could have heard a pin drop. I remember looking around to make sure I wasn't dreaming and saw half of the people with dropped jaws. My daze was interrupted when someone shouted, "Is this a fucking joke?" At this point, things became chaotic.
Right.
Two of the men who were part of the unfamiliar group grabbed the man who shouted and attempted to remove him from the house. A few of us, myself included, tried to intervene. One of them pulled out a gun, and we all backed off. They separated us from the crowd, and all four of us was escorted outside. My industry colleague, who opened up the meeting earlier, hurried out to meet us and reminded us that we had signed an agreement and would suffer the consequences of speaking out about this publicly, or even those who attended the meeting.
Dang.
I asked him why was he involved with something so corrupt, and he replied, "It's bigger than the music business and nothing we can do. No, it's bigger than the music business and nothing we want to challenge without risking consequences." We all protested as we walked back into the house. I remember word for word the last thing he said. It's out of my hands now. Just remember, you signed an agreement. He then closed the door behind him. The man rushed us to our car and actually waited until we drove off the property.
Damn.
So this meeting, bro.
Now that's a lot for a meeting right there.
Oh yeah, definitely. And this person later on, he said, this person actually ended up leaving the music industry after this happened. A few years after this, he ended up leaving the music industry.
Okay.
And he said he just over the years he just felt guilty because he said as he sat back and he watched these plans come to a reality
Over 2 decades.
he sat back and was like, wow, they really pulled it off.
Yeah.
They really pulled this off. He was like, they were told not to sign any more political rappers, any more rappers that had messages in their
No positivity.
It was all to be gangster rap music that they promoted and put out.
So if you wonder where Brand Nubians went, where Poor Righteous Teachers went, where Public Enemy went, where KRS-One went, and all sorts of groups like that was talking, even Queen Latifah and Money Love and those, you know what I'm saying? It's a back door.
Yeah, anything that was harmless, fun rap, anything that had a message in it had to go.
Yeah, that's why if you even notice though, now
we talk about that all the time.
Even be brief with it, you know what I'm saying? Those charms that came out like maybe 1988, 89, the African charms, those they lasted for about 2 years and they disappeared real quick. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. Now, after reading all this, it actually made me feel a few different ways. The first emotion I felt was shocked because I was definitely taken back by this, just knowing the level of evil that's involved by even thinking of a plan like this. You know what I'm saying? The second emotion I felt was anger. Anger because it's not enough for them to exploit our culture and make all the money off of it. Because let's keep it real, the industry has never been favorable towards the artists. Never. But they're going to go beyond the artists to get the artists to influence and lure in the consumer, which they knew at the time were mainly minorities.
Yep.
In other words, keep promoting gangster rap so that the youngsters will be influenced by them, which in turn will incite them to want to act like them, and it's a very good chance they'll end up in their prison.
Yeah.
So they're getting paid twice. They're getting paid from the artists they signing, and then they're getting paid from the people that these artists influence that goes to prison trying to be like these artists.
Yeah.
So they making a killing.
All right, guys. So as to what Crazy Bone just said, people are getting paid to send pretty much people to prison, right? So this is what I want you to think about. Each state costs a different price to hold an inmate, all right? So on the screen here, we have a list of 45.15 when this was done, right? This is how much in each state, how much it cost to hold a prisoner, right? Alabama, $14,000. It looking like here, California, it's $64,000 to hold an inmate, almost $65,000 to hold an inmate. So you can keep going down and you can see, if you go to Google and type in how much does it cost to house an inmate per year, this list will pop up and you can go down through each state and see how much, your state would be. Like I said, California is almost $65,000, and the good old state of West Virginia that I'm at, it's only $28,000. Each state's different. So from in that video, right, they were talking about from the early 90s going into the 2000s, how much that they were going to invest in the privately owned prisons. So what I want you to understand is the number of state and federal adult prisons rose from that time, from the early 90s to 2005, right? The prisons rose from 1,277 prisons, right, to 1,821 prisons. The time frame that Crazy Bone was talking about, from the early 90s to the early 2000s, right? Within that time, back then there was 1,277 prisons, right? After they started pretty much putting money into these privately owned sectors, right, it went from that to 1,821 prisons. That's 544 prisons within a 15-year time span, all privately owned prisons funded by the individuals that he just spoke about. That's literally 43% more prisons within a 15-year time. So not only that, but facts, you can go ahead and check it on Google, right? So during that 15-year time span, right, every 10 days, they were breaking ground on a new prison to be built. Every 10 days for 15 years, they were breaking ground for a new prison. So in 1990, there was approximately 771,244 people within state and federal prisons. By 2005, it had passed approximately 1,446,269 inmates. That does not include inmates within jails or in detention centers. This is state and prison facilities, right? Not only that, but currently, as of right now, federal prisons currently have 159,000 inmates in 103 different prisons, which are overcrowded by 33% average rated capacity. As we speak, there are 13 new prisons being built within the federal government, right? And each prison is costing $1.6 billion per prison. The things that he was describing are factual things, and honestly, I believe him just because the simple fact is he, being a part of the Bone Thugs and Harmony, have been in that type of limelight, right? They're in that genre, they're in that sector. They've been there for many, many, many of years. They've seen and heard things that we will never get to see. Not only has he come out and came forward about, things that going on behind closed doors, there are actually rappers now coming out over the woodwork saying that they have seen sacrifices, they have been asked to do certain things. What I want people to understand is the people that you may look up to or may want to become one day are not the people that you think that they are. It completely makes sense. Rap music has always been, as far as long as I can remember, I'm an 80s baby, so I grew up in the 90s. It's always been about drugs and guns and taking dudes' chicks and stealing cars and shooting guns and shooting dice and selling drugs. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's always been the agenda. Whenever someone comes out new and wants to go left field, that stops. The only thing I can ask is for everyone to think for themselves. Do not ever let another man think for you, because unfortunately, the paths that they might want you to go down aren't the great paths or the ones that you actually need to go down. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was definitely an eye-opener. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys not only share this video, but pass it along. A lot of people need to see this video. It's been out for a little bit, but not too many people, I'm sure, have seen it. As always, guys, I send my utmost love, loyalty, respect. I hope you guys keep pushing positivity, because there's so much negativity in the world. And the ones that we look up to the most are actually the ones that are trying to put us down even farther. Stay push positive, guys.